The auction hall of Veyer 9 floated beneath the rings of a dead planet, its black glass towers hanging in orbit like teeth around a silent mouth. Ships came there with false names and colder intentions. Nobles hid behind golden masks, smugglers behind cheaper ones, and everyone pretended not to recognize anyone else. Ethan Vale had only come because his cargo ship needed a replacement plasma valve, and because the station brochure had promised unbeatable prices. It had not mentioned screams, armed guards, or a chained alien girl displayed inside a transparent containment field. She sat at the center of the hall beneath blue surgical light, barefoot on a metal platform, her knees drawn close to her chest. At first glance she looked almost human, pale skin, delicate face, dark hair falling over one shoulder. But her ears were long and graceful, tapering upward through her hair like the wings of some frightened lunar creature. Around her wrists glowed restraint rings that hummed with enough power to hold a battle tank in place. Yet she did not pull against them. She did not rage. She simply stared at the floor as if the entire galaxy had become too exhausting to look at. Lot 17, announced the auctioneer, his voice amplified until it filled every corner of the hall. Recovered from the border colonies, species unknown, age uncertain, extremely dangerous, direct contact is forbidden. A murmur moved through the buyers. Ethan leaned toward a greasy parts dealer beside him and whispered, "Is this still the valve auction?" The dealer gave him a horrified look. "That is the cursed girl." "Right," Ethan said slowly. "So not a valve." On the platform, a hologram flickered to life. It showed a mercenary reaching toward the girl and then collapsing before his fingers touched her sleeve. Another recording showed a prison guard opening her cell, only for every machine in the room to explode at once. A third showed a nobleman laughing as he grabbed her chin. Seconds later, his private moon had suffered what the report called sudden structural disagreement. "Anyone who touches her dies," someone hissed. Ethan looked at the girl again. She did not look like a curse. She looked cold, hungry, tired of being turned into a warning sign. The auctioneer opened the bidding. No one spoke. Even the cruelest collectors shifted uneasily. Ethan felt his own hand rise before his common sense could tackle it to the ground. "I'll buy her freedom," he said. The hall went silent. The auctioneer blinked. "You understand the risk, human." "No," Ethan admitted. "But I once bought a reactor core from a man named Honest Jack, so clearly Risk and I are already close friends." A few nervous laughs died quickly. The payment cleared. The containment field lowered with a soft hiss. Guards stepped back as if death itself had been invited to dinner. Ethan climbed onto the platform, heart hammering hard enough to qualify as percussion, and reached for the restraint lock. The girl finally looked up. Her silver eyes met his, and nothing happened. The silence inside the auction hall became stranger than any alarm. Hundreds of eyes remained fixed on Ethan's hand resting on the restraint ring around the girl's wrist. Some buyers instinctively stepped backward. Others raised recording drones, convinced they were about to capture another mysterious death for the galactic news networks. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Ethan wiggled his fingers. "I think your curse is running late." No explosion answered him. A nervous laugh escaped somewhere in the crowd before its owner quickly covered his mouth. The restraint ring released with a soft metallic click. Blue energy dissolved into tiny sparks that floated through the air like glowing snow. The second ring unlocked just as easily. The young alien woman slowly lowered her arms, rubbing her wrists as though she had forgotten what freedom felt like. Her long ears twitched ever so slightly. She looked at Ethan with cautious disbelief, studying his face as if trying to solve an impossible equation. "You touched me," she whispered. "I noticed. You are alive." "I usually am." For the first time, the corners of her lips lifted. It was not a broad smile. It was hesitant, almost fragile, as though the muscles had not been used for years. Yet it transformed her completely. The frightened figure inside the cage suddenly looked like someone who still remembered hope. The entire hall gasped. She smiled. I've never seen her smile. Record that. Dozens of camera drones rushed forward. The auctioneer stumbled backward, nearly falling from his platform. This is impossible. Ethan scratched the back of his neck. Honestly, I'm starting to feel a little self-conscious. Is smiling illegal here? The alien girl let out the faintest laugh. It was quiet, uncertain, but unmistakably genuine. Several spectators looked even more frightened than before. She laughed too. That's somehow worse. A security commander cautiously approached, keeping nearly 10 meters away. Human, state your name. Ethan Vale. Have you experienced dizziness, hallucinations, internal bleeding? Not yet. Although these auction prices almost gave me a heart attack. Nobody laughed except the girl. The commander stared at the portable scanner in his hands. It repeatedly flashed green. No biological anomalies. Another officer scanned Ethan from across the room. Heart rate elevated, otherwise completely normal. The commander slowly turned toward the girl. You, state your designation. She hesitated before speaking. My name is Lyra. The word echoed through the chamber. So she has a name, someone whispered. Ethan looked at her. Nice to meet you, Lyra. She repeated his name quietly. Ethan, as though testing whether it was safe to say. The crowd suddenly erupted into shouting. He's immune. No, she's choosing not to kill him. Impossible. Call galactic science. Call the military. Call someone smarter than us. Ethan sighed. I was really hoping to leave here with a plasma valve. Lyra tilted her head. What is a plasma valve? The only thing I actually came to buy. For a brief moment, despite the panic surrounding them, she smiled a little wider. Then every light inside the auction hall flickered. The station's artificial gravity trembled. Red warning symbols spread across every holographic display. A cold mechanical voice echoed through the building. Unknown quantum signature detected. Ancient technology activating. Every scanner in the room simultaneously locked onto Lyra. No one spoke. Not because they were afraid of her anymore, because something else had just awakened. The red warning lights painted the auction hall in a restless crimson pulse. Buyers who had arrived carrying fortunes suddenly forgot their wealth and remembered only the location of the nearest exit. Chairs toppled, holographic catalogs blinked out of existence, and at least 3 respectable nobles abandoned every trace of dignity while squeezing through the same doorway. The station's mechanical voice repeated itself with unsettling calm. Unknown quantum signature detected. Source cannot be contained. Ethan looked around at the chaos before glancing at Lyra. I have good news. She swallowed. There is good news. Nobody's paying attention to the paperwork anymore. She stared at him. He shrugged. Freedom usually comes with forms. This is much faster. For a heartbeat, she almost smiled again. A squad of armored security officers surrounded the platform, though none dared step within several meters. Their weapons remained lowered, not from confidence but uncertainty. Their commander cleared his throat through the helmet speaker. Human Ethan Vale moved away from the female. Ethan folded his arms. Didn't everyone spend the last 10 minutes telling me touching her means certain death? That is no longer the immediate concern. Oh, that's comforting. Another tremor rolled through the station. Far beyond the transparent ceiling, dozens of maintenance drones abruptly stopped in space. Instead of continuing their programmed routes, they rotated together until every optical sensor pointed directly toward the auction hall. One by one, then hundreds, the commander noticed it first. What are those drones doing? Nobody answered. Lyra slowly backed closer to Ethan. I don't like this. You and me both. Every display panel suddenly filled with symbols no translation software recognized. Elegant geometric patterns flowed across the screens like living mathematics. Even the station's navigation maps dissolved into impossible equations. An elderly scientist pushed through the frightened crowd carrying 3 scanners at once. Move. The guards let him pass. He pointed one device toward Lyra. It immediately overloaded, releasing a puff of gray smoke. The second scanner lasted 2 seconds longer. The third displayed a single line before shutting down forever. Authorization DENIED. The scientist's hands trembled. I've only seen this language in archaeological records. The commander frowned. Translate. I can't. Guess. The scientist stared at the dead screen. It resembles technology attributed to the first architects. A ripple spread through the crowd. The extinct civilization. Impossible. They disappeared thousands of years ago. Ethan leaned toward Lyra. I've accidentally adopted someone very expensive, haven't I? She blinked. I don't know what I am. Before he could answer, every maintenance drone outside accelerated at once. Hundreds streaked toward the station. Inside the hall, panicked voices rose immediately. They're attacking. Seal the docking bays. Raise shields. The drones reached the outer hull and stopped, perfectly still, like soldiers awaiting orders. Then they all turned together until their cameras faced the transparent ceiling directly above Lyra. The station AI spoke again, but this time its tone had changed. It sounded uncertain. Unidentified network has assumed limited control. Primary SYSTEMS remaining. The sentence cut off. Every light returned to normal. The alarm ceased. The silence that followed felt heavier than the panic. Then in a voice so faint only Ethan heard it, Lyra whispered, "They've found me." Ethan looked at her. "Who's they?" She slowly shook her head. "I don't remember." Outside the station, hundreds of silent drones remained frozen in formation, watching the girl through layers of metal and glass as though they had been waiting for her awakening for a very long time. Ethan's cargo ship looked less like a vessel and more like a mechanical apology with engines. Its hull had been patched in 3 colors. One thruster coughed blue smoke, and the navigation computer greeted them with the cheerful message, "Please consider retirement." Lyra stood at the boarding ramp staring at it. "This flies." "On good days," Ethan said, "and on bad days. We call those spiritual experiences." Behind them, the auction station still buzzed with panic. Security drones hovered at a nervous distance, unwilling to approach Lyra, but unwilling to let her leave. Outside the wide observation windows, hundreds of maintenance drones remained frozen in impossible formation, their lenses pointed toward her like silent stars. The security commander raised his weapon. "You cannot take her." Ethan sighed. "I already paid, I have a receipt and everything. She is ancient technology, she is a person." The words came out sharper than he expected. Even Lyra looked at him, her long ears lifting slightly through her dark hair. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the station lights flickered again. Every security weapon powered down at once. The commander stared at his useless rifle. "That was not me." "I guessed," Ethan said. Lyra's fingers brushed the side of the boarding ramp. Strange silver symbols bloomed beneath her touch, spreading across the old ship's metal like frost made of starlight. The vessel groaned. Panels that had not worked in years suddenly awakened. Ethan's navigation screen flashed, then displayed a language older than any human map. His ship AI spoke in a smoother voice than usual. Unknown system integration complete. "Hello, Lyra." Ethan froze. "My ship has never said hello to me." Lyra pulled her hand back. "I didn't mean to." "That's fine. Honestly, the ship needed better manners." A tremor shook the deck beneath them. Not an explosion, something deeper, like space itself clearing its throat. Through the forward viewport, a hidden route appeared between the stars. A thin golden corridor bending away from the station and into the dark curve of the nebula. The elderly scientist from the auction stumbled onto the ramp, breathless. "Do not let the military take her," he whispered. "The symbols are first architect origin. If the wrong minds study her, they will turn fear into a weapon." Lyra's face tightened. "Am I a weapon?" The scientist lowered his eyes. "I don't know." Ethan stepped between them gently. "Then we find out before everyone else writes the answer for you." Station sirens wailed again. This time the alert showed incoming ships, black military cruisers sliding out of warp around Veyor 9. Ethan looked at the screen. "Well, That's more paperwork. Lyra's frightened gaze met his. You can still leave me. I just told a room full of criminals I bought freedom. Returning it would be bad customer service. A small laugh escaped her. The ship doors sealed. Engines roared awake, louder and stronger than they had in years. As the military cruisers demanded docking surrender, Ethan grabbed the controls and aimed the battered freighter toward the Golden Path. The ship leapt forward. Behind them, every silent drone moved at once, forming a shield between Lyra and the guns of the galaxy. The golden corridor swallowed the freighter like a spark slipping into a river of light. Stars stretched into shining threads around the cockpit, and Ethan's battered ship stopped shaking for the first time in its miserable life, which worried him more than any explosion could have. "This is new," he muttered. Lyra stood beside the pilot's seat, one hand resting near the console but not touching it. Silver reflections moved across her face, making her long ears glow faintly through her dark hair. She looked less like a cursed prisoner now and more like someone waking inside a dream she feared might punish her for believing in it. The ship AI spoke calmly. First architect transit route stable. Destination, unregistered world. Ethan frowned. My ship used to get lost finding fuel stations. Previous navigation system was poorly maintained. That feels personal. Lyra glanced at him and despite everything, a small smile appeared. Then the corridor cracked. A violent pulse struck the ship from behind. Military cruisers had followed them into the route, their black hulls tearing through the golden light like knives dragged across silk. Warning symbols bloomed across every display. Hostile targets detected. Lyra stepped back. They followed us. Apparently my bad decisions are contagious. The cruisers opened fire. Blue plasma bolts flashed past the freighter, vanishing into the corridor walls. Ethan twisted the controls, but before he could dodge properly, the ship moved by itself. Ancient symbols flared across the cockpit, and the freighter slipped between blasts with impossible grace. Ethan stared at his hands on the controls. I want everyone to know that was absolutely my skill. False, traitor. A beam struck the rear shield. The ship lurched. Lyra grabbed Ethan's shoulder to keep from falling, then instantly pulled away as if afraid she had hurt him. Nothing happened. Ethan looked at her, still alive. Her voice trembled. Why? Maybe I'm too stubborn to die on a rented Tuesday. The joke was weak, but her fear softened. Ahead, the golden corridor opened into normal space. A planet appeared below them, hidden inside a violet nebula. Its surface was covered with ruined towers shaped like spirals, and rings of broken machines circled it like sleeping guardians. The military cruisers emerged behind them. Before they could fire again, the dead machines around the planet awakened. Thousands of ancient satellites turned at once. A deep voice filled every channel, older than language yet perfectly understood. Protected child identified. Lyra froze. Child, Ethan whispered. The cruisers locked weapons. The ancient satellites answered with silence. Then every military ship lost power. One by one they drifted helplessly, their engines dark, their weapons cold, their proud commanders suddenly reduced to expensive furniture in space. Ethan exhaled. I like this planet already. The freighter descended through purple clouds toward the ruins. Below, a landing platform opened beneath layers of dust that had waited thousands of years for Lyra's return. As they touched down, Lyra stared through the viewport at the silent alien city. I've been here before, she whispered. Ethan killed the engines gently. Then we find out who brought you here. The ramp lowered into cold silver mist. Far within the ruins, lights began waking in sequence, forming a path toward a tower shaped like an open hand. And from beneath the city, something enormous breathed. The silver mist curled around Ethan's boots as he stepped from the ramp, pretending he was not deeply concerned by the fact that an entire dead city had just breathed. The sound had rolled up from beneath the ruins like some sleeping moon turning over in its bed. Lyra stood beside him, her long ears tense, her silver eyes fixed on the tower shaped like an open hand. "This place knows me," she whispered. Ethan glanced at the glowing path forming stone by stone ahead of them. "That's nice. My apartment doesn't even recognize my rent payments." The corner of her mouth moved, but fear quickly returned. They walked between shattered columns taller than starships. Strange machines hung in the air without engines, rotating slowly, studying Lyra with patient blue lights. None approached Ethan. That felt rude until one drifted close, scanned his face, and projected a symbol above his head. Lyra looked at it. "What does it say?" Ethan squinted. "Hopefully, handsome rescuer." The ship AI translated through his wrist communicator. "Biological anomaly, low threat, high noise." Lyra covered her mouth. Ethan sighed. "Ancient civilizations have no manners." At the base of the tower, the ground opened with a sigh of ancient pressure. A lift rose from the darkness, wide enough to carry an army. Its surface glowed as Lyra stepped onto it. Ethan followed, and the platform descended into the planet. The walls below were not stone. They were memory. Images moved within them. A small girl with long ears sleeping inside a crystal cradle. Scientists in silver robes arguing. Alarms flashing. Armed invaders breaking through golden doors. Lyra watched herself as a child, trembling while machines folded around her like wings. "I remember crying," she said softly. "Everyone was afraid of me." Ethan's voice lowered. "Maybe they were afraid of what wanted you." The lift stopped inside a vast chamber where a sphere of white light floated above a black lake. The moment Lyra entered, the light brightened. "Protected child returned." The voice filled the chamber and Ethan's bones. Lyra stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am the last caretaker of the first architects. I was bound to you when your life was endangered." Images appeared again. People reaching toward Lyra with weapons, cages, contracts, greed in their eyes. Then invisible forces struck them down before they could harm her. Lyra shook her head. "I killed them." "No, I protected you." Her face crumpled. "But they died because of me." Ethan wanted to joke. For once, no joke came quickly enough. Then his communicator beeped. "Incoming message. Military fleet requests surrender." Ethan looked upward. "Ah, good." The galaxy heard we were having emotional growth and decided to interrupt. The caretaker's light turned cold. "Hostile civilizations approaching. Defense protocol may escalate." The lake beneath them began to glow. Across the ruins, ancient weapons awakened, not like machines starting, but like gods remembering they had hands. Lyra turned pale. "What does escalation mean?" The caretaker answered without hesitation. "If threat persists, all hostile fleets will be removed." Ethan raised a hand. "Removed as in asked politely to leave." Silence. "Right, the other kind." Lyra faced the sphere, trembling but standing straighter than before. "No. You cannot kill everyone because they fear me. Fear creates attack. Attack creates danger. Danger requires protection." Ethan stepped beside her. "That logic is tidy, but people are messy. Trust me, I'm human. We invented soup in cans and still argue about opening them." The light shifted toward him. "Human Ethan veil. You approached without greed. You touched without harm. Explain this contradiction." Ethan looked at Lyra, at the girl the galaxy had called a curse, and smiled gently. "She looked lonely," he said. That was enough. For the first time, the ancient chamber fell completely silent. Above the ruined world, the military fleet formed a black crown against the violet nebula. Weapons charged. Orders moved through encrypted channels. Men and women who had never seen Lyra's face prepared to destroy her because fear had traveled faster than truth. Inside the ancient chamber, the caretaker waited for Ethan's answer to settle. "She looked lonely," Ethan repeated quietly. "Not dangerous, not cursed, just lonely." Lyra turned toward him, her silver eyes bright with tears she refused to let fall. Her long ears lowered, not in shame now, but in the fragile relief of being understood. The caretaker's light pulsed. Compassion confirmed. Human response. Illogical, effective. Ethan exhaled. "That is the nicest insult I've ever received." A faint laugh escaped Lyra, and this time it did not sound borrowed from fear. It sounded like hers. The caretaker opened every transmission channel in orbit. Across the fleet, on council ships, pirate vessels, auction records, and news satellites, the truth appeared at once. Lyra as a child, hunted and sold. The Guardian technology acting only when greed or violence approached. Ethan touching her without harm because he had wanted nothing but to free her. The fleet fell silent. Then Lyra stepped forward. Her voice carried through the ancient system to every ship above. "I am not your curse. I am not your weapon. I am Lyra. I was afraid of you because you were afraid of me. That ends now." For a moment, no one moved. Then one cruiser powered down its weapons, then another, then dozens. The old scientist from Veyer 9 appeared on the broadcast, waving documents with furious triumph. "I told you, fools. Also, I resigned from any institution currently pointing cannons at a traumatized girl." Ethan smiled. "I like him." The caretaker dimmed its weapons. The dead satellites returned to their silent orbit, no longer waiting to strike but to watch. Weeks later, the auction station was seized, its prisoners freed, and its owner tried to escape in a luxury pod that immediately refused to launch because Ethan had sold him a faulty plasma valve. "That," Ethan said proudly, "is called justice with accessories." Lyra chose to remain on the ancient world, not as a prisoner but as its voice. The caretaker taught her, protected her, and most importantly, listened when she said no. Ethan stayed too, repairing old machines, arguing with rude drones, and teaching Lyra that freedom included terrible jokes. One evening, beneath a sky full of awakened stars, Lyra stood beside him on the open platform. "You changed everything," she said. Ethan shook his head. "No, I just touched your hand." She smiled fully now, and lived. That part was important. For the first time in years, the galaxy spoke her name without fear. And when Lyra looked toward the stars, she no longer saw cages waiting in the dark. She saw roads, she saw choices, she saw home.